Hello, dear friends. Welcome back to our program, Quantum Education with Juan Villegas. Hello, Juan. How are you?
Hello. Very good. Thank you for having me here.
No, thank you for the interview. We all have many questions, and thank you for joining Education 3002. Today we have a very nice subject. It's about the children and the children as a quantum being. And by the way, Juan has a lot of experience in education too, because he has been the director of a very nice school, a music school in Nepal. It's called Gurukul School or Academy, right?
Yeah, Gurukul Academy.
And then Juan spent 5 years as a teacher in Auroville in India, and he has a lot of experience as an educator as well, besides all his research in quantum physics and quantum education. So today, the children, why can we say and state the children are quantum beings?
Well, first of all, like we are all quantum beings. We are all quantum beings.
That's the good news.
Yes, it's good. And it's confusing also, but yeah, it's good. And the idea with this like presentation is more to, I want to bring like the possibility to change. Now there's a necessity actually, because we have been looking into to humans as like physical bodies, chemical bodies that somehow have a brain we don't understand. And our concept of relationship and education has been based on like a very basic understanding. Now, as the time has gone in the recent years, we have begun to see that like we are not only chemical beings, we are also electromagnetic. The brain is, and the whole nervous system, the cells, the DNA, everything has like an electromagnetic like functioning. So this affects the functioning of the brain and the relationship and the learning. And also not only that, but like recently also we have begun to see that in the brain there are like parts of the neuron that are like so small that they're called microtubules, where the quantum, the laws of physics that apply there are different. It's more like a quantum laws of physics.
Again, microtubules.
Yes, they are like a little part.
But that's cells. I mean, they are all over. Like
they are inside the neurons, and they are like managing the connection between the neurons and in processing information there. So
microtubules, and why are they so important?
Well, when the important thing is that when we see that the functioning of the cell, and like, I mean, the neuron is very important, no? It's like how we're making connections, how we're transferring information, the emotions that are released. But if we see that like one of the parts of the neuron that is managing how it works, it's not, it doesn't go by the normal laws of physics, but by the quantum like understanding of physics, which is very different. It brings us also the possibility that the brain can function and connect and manage information and energy in very different ways. So it's like an emerging like a field of exploration where we begin to see the mind as a possible quantum phenomena, and this has like it's a very different paradigm. Because for example, like if you're asking like, but what is different between this classical and the modern quantum physics? Like for example, like in the quantum world, very strange things happen. Like in fact, one of the few things that most quantum physicists agree is that we don't really understand it. It's like very strange. So particles can be in different places at the same time. Particles can be connected like across time and space and transfer information simultaneously. Like doesn't matter, thousands of miles. So there is an instant transfer of information. There is even teleportation of particles. There is like information that emerges from the vacuum, from the quantum field, and disappears into the quantum field. There is like time going backwards there is simultaneous like parallel possibilities, parallel realities. There is a whole lot of like possibilities of phenomena that can happen in the quantum world that don't happen in the classical world of physics. And to see that the brain is interacting with that, it can have very big implications. Already we can see how like the shift between normal computing and quantum computing, like it's almost like that. Like in quantum computing, information is like processed instantly. Huge amount of information is processed in a second. So that the brain has access to this level of interaction physically, it brings many questions, it brings many possibilities, it brings a lot of things to research, basically.
And do you think that children have more possibilities to grab all that than us? And that makes things so different?
Well, already the way the mind operates, it's very similar to a quantum computer. And the way that specifically the emotional, the right hemisphere of the brain, the way it processes information, it reminds me a lot of like the quantum computing, how it takes a whole situation, it processes it emotionally, and a solution emerges without logical steps. This is how a quantum computer operates in a basic way. So if children have more access to this? Potentially, yes. Like many people have said that children are born genius unless we block them. So how do we block them? We block them if we block their emotional processing. We are born with a quantum supercomputer on our right hemisphere that if we are blocking their emotions, don't be angry, don't be sad, don't be afraid, don't be this, don't be that, we are limiting their way of processing information, and eventually it gets like quite stuck. So do children have more access to all this? Yes, in a way, because they have not yet received so much rules and conditioning about like how to be, how not to be, how to think, what not to think. So potentially they have a little bit more natural access to this like quantum processing. But all of us as well.
Wow. And you said something like from the vacuum, some information can spur out. I mean, you can get information from nothing. Did you say that?
Well, there is like lots of like very strange experiments and that have happened in the laboratories and observations where we see like particles emerging from the vacuum, particles disappear into the vacuum. So in some way, like there is a new understanding of the vacuum, not as something that is like empty, but as like something that is like filled with like potentials of information and potential particles and potential realities that can emerge or not, if allowed or not.
So our brain could tap to that as well.
This is like, I don't want to make like a strong affirmation, but like this is the possibility that why many researchers are very excited about this, that the brain has a little bridge that is to this quantum world.
Wow, that's what can be linked with, because now it's everybody's talking about co-creation, but it's linked to that maybe.
Yes, I mean it's like it's another big topic, but yes, it can be.
Topic.
Yes.
Let's go back to the children. So you said they could tap to that. But that's a lot of information, because then we do things wrong, right?
We're doing things in a very limited way, very, very limited way from the potential of how we can operate this body and this brain. It's like this analogy of like having an airplane that we are just driving up and down the airport, driving.
All right. And is it linked to the DNA?
Well, in some sense also, like the DNA and like the way the DNA works, there is a lot of like mysteries and a lot of like research as well there that I think we need to also look into. A connection with this, with the DNA. I don't know if it's immediately connected with like this topic, but I mean, for sure, like we're seeing that like that the DNA is like communicating with the cell and other parts of the cell, emitting biophotons. So there is already like an electromagnetic communication going on in the cells. That is something that we have not considered before. And another thing interesting about DNA that it's not so much connected with this like quantum thing, but I think it will be interesting to look into how it applies to education as well, which is the whole idea of epigenetics. Like there has been a paradigm shift in the understanding of how DNA works recently. Like when I was in school, I learned that you're born with a DNA and that's it. And now we are beginning to see that that's not true. The environment around you, the emotions that you generate, like they can deactivate genes. They can change in a way the way the DNA operates. So that connects also with the idea of like all this emotional transference of information, and like how the emotions are playing a much more strong role than we thought in how our body operates and how we learn. So when looking at children, yes, this could also be considered.
Wow. So interesting.
And another thing that I find is we need to look into with education is that what we are seeing in epigenetics is that the experiences you go through as an adult, they leave like a genetic imprint. And this genetic imprint is passed on to children.
It's passed down.
So there is a lot of like emotional, for example, traumas or interests or talents that are handed down. So this we didn't really consider before. Like what was the emotional history that is transferred to children? That other cultures, I think that they knew about this, because it seems like almost all the cultures in the world, like native indigenous cultures, they had like an intuitive understanding that whatever the parents, the emotional conflicts of the parents and the ancestors, they were transferred to the children, and it will affect their life story. So yes, the DNA, there is a lot in DNA that we need to look into as well.
Wow, that's incredible. Well, I think that's for today a lot of information. Let's go on with all those incredible topics. Before we close, maybe something you recommend to the children?
To the children, I would recommend that they trust themselves and they do the best that they can follow their interest, and that it's okay to have different emotions, that there's nothing bad with sometimes you might feel angry, you might feel sad, you might feel scared. All of that is natural. It's how we're learning. So I would encourage them to be themselves, and whenever they have difficulties, they are normal. Go through them, keep going, and we'll try to support you.
Thank you so much. I think next video we will see manifestation more powerful than I think. So that would be very good news, and we will know how to do that. Thank you again, Juan. We were with Juan Villegas, researcher in quantum education. We have many more programs and we stay together. Thank you so much. See you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.